Welcome to the Resilience Sucks podcast, brought to you by the Adaptability Movement. I'm Ben.
And I'm Dan.
And we're here to give you resources and tools to help you go from a state of surviving to thriving in life.
Resilience sucks the life out of you. And while it's a necessary skill, it's one that we don't want to spend too much time in or we run out of capacity. We're here to talk to you more about how to adapt and find the opportunity in change so you can really go about thriving in your own life. John, welcome to the Resilience Sucks podcast. To give the audience some context, my co-founder Ben Haran joining us today, as well as his dad, John. So, John, welcome. Today, we're really keen to explore a little bit about your rich experiences in life. I've been fortunate to get to know you, obviously through Ben, through some different experiences we've shared, both on a tennis court and camping and some different environments. So, just to start off, just tell us a little bit about I guess, where you're from, in terms of your background and where you find yourself at the moment in life, and let's start with that.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Ben. Good to be here. I guess it starts in Albert Park, South Australia, Adelaide. My dad was a wharfie, worked on the wharfs at Port Adelaide. We were very embedded in the whole sort of Port Adelaide culture, hence barracking for the football team, Port Adelaide. My upbringing was a very kind of traditional one, I suppose, in terms of mum stayed at home, dad worked. We played a lot in the street with the local kids and kicked the footy up and down the road, and the cricket ball and the tennis rackets were out frequently. I had two quite a bit older sisters who my wife tells me now she reckons I had three mothers who nurtured me. So they're 11 and 14 years older than me, so she's probably right. I was a bit spoiled as a young guy, but went to school at St Michael's at Beverley, and then high school at Henley Beach, St Michael's. So played a lot of sport, footy and tennis in particular, but just had really an ideal upbringing. My family was very involved in the community, in the Catholic Church. My dad did a lot of, and mum both did a lot of charitable works back in the day. They were very selfless people. They were very keen for their children to be educated because they never got the chance to go beyond primary school themselves. They were both from the mid-north of South Australia, both from farms, but moved to Adelaide in the war years when they got married. And so I'm only one generation from being a farmer, and yet a less likely farmer you could never find.
Isn't that's strange, isn't it? Like how we've got this embedded skill set, and for some reason we've neglected to hand it on to the next generation. It's like we've tried to provide a safer, more sanitised upbringing for that offspring, and yet all of the skills that we've accumulated, we've gone, maybe they don't need that.
It's funny because my two older sisters, I could imagine being farmers, but me, I'm a city slicker. I'm really embedded in the culture of urbanisation, if you like. Yeah. So my early days were very, very joy-filled, and I suppose my earliest kind of teachings from my parents were to be someone that can make a difference. So the whole idea about education that they were on about, I think, was that that would give you the tools to do something important in life. Sure. Now, they were non-prescriptive about what that could be, but they certainly encouraged me and my two sisters to explore opportunities and to reach a standard of education which could enable us to explore the world in a very full way. I mean, my mum never went out of South Australia. She had an experience of life which was completely a country girl originally, and then living in Adelaide. Never sought to travel. Never really would have had the opportunity. And Dad was a very good sports person back in his youth. Very good footballer, very good country footballer. He could have probably played league footy down here if he'd so desired, but they also encouraged us really in that sporting endeavour to really be to be involved, not just for the sake of sport, but for the sake of the relationships that built. So I think I learnt a lot from those early relationships through sport. Was a really something that really helped my esteem, because as a sports person, as you guys would know, it does give you a kind of a place in a team, in a community, if you like.
Yeah.
And it does give you a kind of a sense of identity, as well as a kind of way of operating. You know what a footballer does, you know what a tennis player does, and I think it gives you some confidence to do other things if you really desire that.
Absolutely. And you've had quite a storied career in tennis as one of your major sports. I believe you had a 50th anniversary of the club not that long ago, and you're the longest active playing member at the very least.
Yes, I am. I've been there for, I think, 47 of those 50 years that the club's been in existence.
Yeah, phenomenal. It's such an achievement.
Well, I think one of the things that my parents instilled in me is if you take on something, don't do it half-heartedly, and look to the long term. That's probably taking it to the extreme to play for one club to 47 years. I'm not sure they had that in mind, but I've always stuck at things. So I've always, if I do something, I'll really give it a go. I won't just kind of start it and then think, oh no, that's not, I can't do it or whatever. I'll really give it a go, and then if I can't do it or other things crop up, I'll shift. But I guess I'm a joiner and a sticker in that sense.
Yeah. And like Ben, hearing Dad talk like that about his upbringing, how do you connect with that? Like, what was your experience, compared to his, and what are the sort of other maybe common themes as well that you sort of learned from?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of common themes in terms of, obviously our upbringings were probably very different in regards to opportunities and things like that. I think we were given basically as many opportunities as we could have ever wanted. But in terms of the themes of things such as community, being selfless, sport, all those different types of things that he mentioned just then, that they were fundamental in our upbringing as well. So there's definitely a lot that's been passed on through those generations, I feel. I feel like I would be a little bit more likely to be a farmer than I love camping and being out on the land and all that sort of stuff. But I don't know if I ever would be a farmer. I don't think I would ever want to be, but I feel like I could be if I needed to. But yeah, it just everything that he said about his upbringing kind of can be sort of related to my own upbringing. I could probably interchange him and myself a lot in there as well. So
yeah, because I just like observing, and like I've obviously known you for 3 going on 4 years, and John probably something similar, but I see like this great like relationship and a lot of like commonalities between the two of you, and I really admire that. Like I admire the way that strong noble values that you carry, John, that then now contributes towards our business and our vision and what we're doing. And so I know you've recently been doing a lot of writing because you retired. Was it last year, before?
3 years ago.
3 years ago. Wow,
yeah.
That's crept along.
Yeah.
So, like, give us some insight into that, because I know there's been some deep reflection that happened sort of during that period, and that's really sort of shaped life differently since for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved writing, and I've always written a lot, but mainly it's been in the context of my work. So everything from case notes of clients through to strategic plans for organisations and policy documents and so on. But I've always been attracted to stories, so I've tried wherever I've been involved in those activities to embed stories into my writing, even if it's about policy. I've tried to enrich that with stories of real people rather than just pure sort of policy development. And I suppose since not being in the paid workforce, I've had the opportunity now to explore creative writing and to, but again, it's really about people's stories. I've had the opportunity throughout my working life to be in contact with homeless people, Vietnam veterans, people struggling with mental health issues, refugees, people on the edge in all sorts of different ways, and it's given me a great insight into what it is to be human, because many of those people, as I've contacted them, they're kind of they're almost expressing a humanity that we all need to aspire to, because everything else is peeled away from them in a material sense, and they're grappling with their own humanity in a very real way. My first kind of encounter with homeless people was when I was working at the day I started at the Hutt Street Centre, and I was the first social worker to be employed there, and it was a volunteer organisation. It's now grown into a much bigger and more professional kind of arrangement, but this was in the early 1990s, and so I rolled up for my first day at work there, and it was breakfast time, and they've got a big meal centre there where they have meals for 100 to 150 people a day. It was breakfast, and the room was full, and I sat down and had breakfast and had a bit of a chat with a few, and I was just talking with one of the other volunteers there, and I said, what are those people queuing over there in front of that door? There's about 6 or 8 people lined up, and they said, oh, well, they're waiting to see you. I said, oh, are they? I better get over there then. So this was about 8 o'clock in the morning, and they'd all heard that this social worker was coming to help them. I'm not sure what they were expecting I could do, and I wasn't sure what I was expecting I could do, but anyway, I emerged from there about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Everyone said, hey, you missed lunch. I said, well, there was this stream of people coming through. But what it highlighted for me, and I spent the next 6 years working there, and it was a very rich time, is that the people really, what they wanted was someone to listen to them, basically. Yes, they wanted housing, yes, they wanted support with their mental health issues and so on, and they were sort of presenting kind of issues, but at the end of the day, they had a story that they wanted to share with someone, and I was a person that could listen to them. Yeah. So that's one of the things that's really informed my writing as I've emerged in these last few years, is to really try and tell stories of humanity and what it is to be human.
Yeah. So I find it fascinating the way that you talk about, and I've seen it and I've experienced it myself in the way that sometimes people just need to talk. But what value do you place on feeling heard? Where else have you seen that across your life, and how much impact can that have just by letting someone feel like they have enough value to be listened to?
Well, I think it's almost the greatest challenge of our time, because there's so much external noise these days, and everyone wants to get their point of view across, and often, and especially in media in all forms, we're talking at cross purposes, we're talking across one another, and I think the greatest challenge for us now, and I think for men in particular, this is probably the case, is to be listeners, to hear each other, just to be quiet, be still, and to hear each other, because the value of someone's story is immense, and certainly in that Hutt Street Centre environment, I saw the value of people just coming to tell their story, just being, and they'd walk away, and all their problems wouldn't be solved by any stretch of the imagination, but they felt respected, they felt that they had value, that they had a place to come, and I think that's what we all desire, is a place to express ourselves, and we don't always find that. And I think it's contingent upon us as people to provide the space for others to do that. Because I think that's what really can turn around humanity, if you like, and can cut through a lot of the problems and a lot of issues before they even emerge, if we listen to one another.
I think that that was highlighted in. I was doing a session with the footy club the other week, and we did two exercises. One on their life story, and kind of going through. Everyone was in small groups, and they went through their life story briefly, just like the high points, low points, and trying to the idea of it was to give people more understanding of the other people within the team. So, like for me, like a high point was like getting drafted to the AFL. Like that was obviously like one of the highest points of my life. But then like low points were injuries and getting delisted or breakups and all that sort of thing. And it I guess it gives people context as to who people are and why they might be the person that they are. And then the other exercise was around purpose and why they were there, and their reason for being at the footy club.
Yeah.
And again, it just gives people an understanding, because everyone, especially at the footy club, everyone's like, oh, you should come to footy. You go to dinners after footy. After the games, everyone goes up, have beers. Stay at the footy club, all this sort of stuff. But some people don't want to do that. Some people just come and play football because they want to play football.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other people who the football is just the excuse for the rest of the stuff, like the social stuff, and kind of like what you were talking about before. It kind of being a part of a footy club, like it's a place for them, like that they feel like they belong there and all that sort of thing. And it gives them a bit of meaning. It's every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday they're at the footy club type thing. So it was about people listening to other people and understanding them, and like you were saying before, it wasn't their life, like it was parts of their story. It wasn't someone getting out there and talking for an hour about their life story. It was just this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. But then I think it allows people to go, well, people now know more about me. Like there might not have ever been an opportunity if we hadn't done that for people to express these things that they've had in their lives, that then people go, oh, okay. And then that sparks other conversations, and it develops deeper connection between the players, and deeper connection ultimately can lead to a better functioning team and a community, and hopefully that will then equal better results on the field if that's what you're up to.
And like footy clubs are great, they're great petri dishes for exploring and stuff, because you've got there's 21, 22 blokes or girls playing on the side, and like to get that many people to move in the one direction, not just to go that way because we're going that way for this quarter, but actually to unite around a set of values, to cooperate for a common cause, but to also be able to have that permission to be able to individually express themselves. And if you're only focusing on conforming people to something, well, there's going to be resentment, there's going to be withdrawal. The loudest voices might feel really comfortable where they're at, but a lot of other people are going to feel suppressed in what they are there for. Yeah. And so when you give people an opportunity to, like you said, to be able to connect over those differences, to be able to understand each other's uniqueness, that we start to place value on that. And when we do that, we feel a sense of belonging, we feel a sense of worth, and then we feel a sense of connection, because it's a two-way, or in that sort of, it's a multi-directional kind of thing. But how often do we create a space for that in society? Like you were saying, John, we just, there's so many distractions. I sat down with some athletes last night, and we did every 5 weeks we do an exercise, and it's on mindfulness, and sometimes we'll do meditation, sometimes we'll do just like something to create more self-awareness, and last night we spoke about where are you self-limiting yourself in life, and the common theme was sleep and screen time on technology. It was and I should almost say that's the common outcome, because the outcome was poor sleep. It was waking up tired, it was going to bed late, it was feeling overstimulated. The cause or the stimulus for that was distraction. It was that need to not be still, because there's this fear of now be bored. And so why would you be bored? Like the greatest creative minds over time have all spoken about the way they express themselves was through that self-reflection, through that time to sit and be still and to observe. And there's very little value that I've noticed in the way I've sort of experienced life in doing that. I think there is a movement towards it now, where we start to talk more about concepts like mindfulness and meditation. But it feels like a chore now, because we've spent so long avoiding it as a society, and on an individual level, that there's a discomfort about, I'd actually rather just mindlessly scroll through here and feed that same neural pattern that it doesn't really serve me. I don't really feel good doing it, but I feel so uncomfortable stopping, because there's an attachment to that. There's an addiction to those things, which is preventing me from that spiritual growth through that self-reflection, the things that allow me to grow as a person. What do you guys think about that?
I think I agree with you. There is a movement towards that, but I think we're still a long way from it. And I think we've sort of we need to train ourselves and be trained by people to do it now, which is a bit of a pity, because it should be a very natural kind of thing for us to actually experience. You know, I spend a lot of time now that I'm not working, because I don't have deadlines, I don't have particular things that I need to do at particular times. Just being, just sitting, just letting whatever happens happen in my parts of my day. But I think it's also part of my personality a bit. I think people who are more sort of task centered, if you like, and have lists of things. You know, I've gone through phases where I'd generate lists, and I'd always be kind of disappointed because the list would never, you know, you tick a few things off, but more would just keep coming on. So so I don't do that anymore. But I think, and that can be a little frustrating for others who think, oh, you should be doing this or you should be doing that. But I think that sense of just being, just sitting and just gazing out the window and looking at the trees and being in nature, I think that's where we're meant to be. You know, we come from an ancestry where life was in the forests. It was in the open air, and it's not that long that we've been actually urbanised in the way that we are, and we're still coming to terms with that. And but I think in that process we've actually lost some of that value of just being by ourselves, being together. And you know, I think it's interesting when you gather people together and there's silence, people immediately want to fill the silence, and instead of kind of respecting that even in a group, silence can actually be quite valuable, and can be valuable for a group to actually just not even say anything for a while, but just be together, you know, in whatever setting that is. But I think that you're right, there is a strong movement in that direction to try to recover that sense of being, and in a way it's going to be the salvation of our humanity, I think, because otherwise we keep going down this very narrow road that creates a paradigm where our experience is all embedded in activities that demand us to do something, when actually the task is to be something, to be.
Yeah, I certainly feel that we fall into this trap of convenience, of doing something, and the way I observe it is, you know, our problems as a society, especially in urbanised cultures, is that the anxiety, the depression, the irritability, the dissatisfaction with life is growing, and yet we're told that there's more services, there's more technology than there's ever been, there's more funding for this stuff. So you have to ask yourself the question, like, how far do you keep persisting down that same path before you start to go, well, let's take a step back from this, wide angle zoom, what do you call it, like a wide angle sort of, look at the situation, instead of going, well, we've only got these things available to us and this is the path we're on, so we've already invested so much, let's keep going. Why don't we look backwards? Why don't we look retrospectively at ancient cultures that function really well on this stuff, or even just our grandparents, our great-grandparents? Why, where does that desire come from to have more? Why would you not be satisfied with, running your own farm in a small community of people, producing your own, food and crops that you trade with others, and, neighbouring families, the kids play together while the parents do something, and there's a safety, a security, a connection, a purpose, and there's time to be still. Yet we somehow think that this urbanisation is the answer, that we're almost like, there's a strong visual, but we're almost like cattle being herded into these sort of cities and being put to work. And where is the time to do this? I know as a father of two children, I'm very lucky to be in a business with a very understanding business partner, and we both desire that flexibility in what we do. We want to do something that feels in alignment with our values and our purpose. But even that sometimes is hard to get the quality time that I would like with my children, and raising them at a very formative stage of their life, to get that time with your wife, to feel connected with your partner. So like where is the opportunity within, because most people don't want to go back to farming, or they just don't feel capable of it. So where is the opportunity within our current environment to change this, to change the paradigm of what is valued and what is important, and move towards something that is so much more fulfilling and builds more connection?
I think one of the things is we've created organisations and roles within organisations which are quite prescriptive. I look at some of the job descriptions that I've had for roles that I've had, and look, to be honest, no human person could fulfil that job description. You know, like you look at it and you think, well, yeah, I've got this job, but there's no way knowing I could actually do all the things that are demanded of it. And whenever I was involved in trying to develop job descriptions for roles that were responsible to me, I always tried to keep it simple and shy away from, you know, getting the person that's going to be superhuman that doesn't exist to fulfill roles. So I think all the research that comes out these days shows that the things that you're talking about in terms of a balance in life of family, neighbourhood, community, sport, recreation and work tells us that our work will actually be better if we have that balance right anyway. So I haven't seen a piece of research that says yet, you know, work 80 hours a week and it's going to be the thing that really makes things happen for you.
Yeah.
So I think we've got to rethink what organisations are doing and how they're doing it and what their expectations are. That's one thing. I think we've just got to start with like the movement that you're a part of. You know, I think we've got to start with individual people and movements that respond to the situation as it is and says, look, we can't go on like this because people are suffering depression, they're suiciding in the worst instances. I mean, I have a number of people of contemporaries of mine that have suicided over the years, and I mean there's a whole range of reasons for that, but essentially we're creating a world where men in particular still feel that they have to do certain things and be the breadwinners and be superhuman in lots of ways. We're putting similar expectations on women in parenting and so on as well, but I think as men we've not found a way to express it, and I think it's got to start with us expressing who we are and who we want to be, and encouraging each other in that. I catch up with a friend one-on-one every Friday morning, and we just have coffee together, and we just have, we don't have an agenda. Our agenda is just to be with one another. And we have been doing that for 3 or 4 years now, most Fridays. And the growth and the sense of being that I've experienced out of that has been enormous, just through that 1 to 2 hours once a week with another guy who we explore things together. And we've both reflected that that's been a very powerful, because it's not just for us. We actually talk about the topics that we're talking about here, and it becomes a way of fashioning our own lives differently and seeing the world through different lenses and different experiences that both of us have in order to be better people, if you like, to try and be creating a better world.
Yeah, I think that's what you're doing there is kind of what we're trying to do with our Friday lunches that we do for men. So for those of you who don't know, every Friday at 12 o'clock we do a lunch at a place, Commune 1 in Seaton, and it's just basically open invite to any man that wants to come. Like last week we had eight guys come along, and again there's no agenda, there's no thing that we're chatting about, no specific thing. It's not like, oh okay, it's not a self-help thing, it's nothing like that. It's literally just come along, meet some other guys, learn about each other, you know, chat about your stories with each other, talk about whatever you want, and just
it's just creating space for men to do that, right? So there's this safe environment where you can come and you can be yourself. You don't you're not at the footy club, you don't have to hide anything, you don't have to pretend you're something you're not, or that you're there for a reason that's like someone else. You come and you meet people, and you know energy flows. Like that's what I've felt, because there's some really diverse conversations that go on, and you're like, this is interesting. Like I'm keen to observe, explore, like understand, and like you said, there is no agenda. It's just a place to be, which is something that like I've really valued. It's a bit of a passion project of ours. It's obviously a little bit away from our core business of running wellbeing and performance programs, but it feels like it's a purpose for us, and it's a place where if you can get a couple of 6'6" ex-athletes, or I mean, I guess we're still in sport to certain degrees, but in terms of the peak of our careers, like in what people value in the highest level of sport, but a couple of big guys walk in and be open and vulnerable, and nothing's kind of off the table in terms of discussion. Well, that's unique, and I think that is very powerful for disarming a situation where you have men that come in with an expectation that stuff's not like okay, or it's not safe.
So we have so many people that say, oh, my husband or my brother or my son should come along to this, but they won't. Like, that's not the type of thing that will come along to it. And it's like we're trying to get past that somehow. Like we're yet to figure out exactly the way to explore that in a way that we can get those people there. But those are the types of people that need this the most. And when I say need it, it's just they need a space where they can connect with other men, because so many people have families, or they're working or whatever, and they might have male friends or connections with other people, but they don't get the space to just be, as we were talking about, and just like you could literally come along and not say a word, just listen to other people if you wanted, and you'd get a whole lot out of it, and or you could go there and spill your guts out and talk about everything. You could it's people just don't have that opportunity to do that, because they're always constantly just being that strong male guy for the family, or just always just working hard, going hard at work or whatever. But having that hour and a half is an opportunity for people to do something different.
And it comes back to what people's concepts are of what that is as well, right? Because if they've never experienced, how do they know it's not for them or for someone they know? They just think that there's a resistance there from that person exploring themselves, to being still, like to meet with others, and that brings about a sense of sadness for me, because I'm grateful that I have that and that we get to share in that. And I think you're self-limiting, or you're what's the word for it? You're the only one standing between you and that opportunity to sort of be okay, to feel at ease, and it's exciting being there, and you just hope that more people will see the value in that and will join us at some point. But
and I think that's the antidote to, if you get to my age and work finishes and you think, well, what now? Because I haven't really needed to think what now. When I got to my age, I kind of instinctively just pursued my passions. But that's not the same for everyone that I am in contact with. They're probably not as, they're more reluctant to leave work because that has been their identity, and continues to provide, especially for males, again, status and a place. And so even if you do have other interests, which you may or may not have pursued while you've been working, it's still hard to make that step to what next, unless you're really kind of in tune with having had experiences, the sort of things that we're talking about. So I would hope that the next generation of men, through the sort of movements that we're talking about here, don't get to that stage where they get to 60, 65 and think, well, is that all there was, or what's next, or what am I going to do now? And because that causes all sorts of problems with not only their own situation, but in relationships with both their partners and their kids. Leads to decline in mental health. It just leads to people being a bit disillusioned with life. And I think if we can prevent that from happening, it's hard to, once you're in that situation, to start instinctively to develop things if you haven't had that experience before then.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like it's experiential. So like if someone's never had an experience of something, it's very difficult to teach them that through context. So I think it starts with self-discovery. Like it's allowing people to feel free to kind of roam and explore, and you're still there, but instead of like keeping the boundaries here, going, we're going to keep this really tight sort of knit around what is acceptable, or we allow people to make mistakes. We allow them to sort of, you know, fumble up and recover, and the value in that is that each person gets to develop a bit of self-confidence about that. They get to have an opportunity to sort of speak about that, to feel vulnerable, to be okay being vulnerable as well, and to then see other people go through the same experience, because it can be a different thing to teach. Alternatively, on the other side, it's very easy to teach that really tight-knit kind of things, and people either comply or they won't. And the way that, I don't know if conditioning is the right word, but it feels a bit like conditioning, the way that there is this kind of idea of a stoic Australian male, you know, this sort of person that sort of just, you know, harden up, get on with it, you know, got to be a strong leader for the family, for the business, and like while those things are somewhat noble, like if you attach yourself to that, like that should be like one of the tools in your kit, maybe, right? So the ability to be that when you need to be, but then to also be the ability to be a compassionate, loving father that can connect with your daughters and your sons, to be a thoughtful and generous partner. Like these are the things that, for me, fundamentally, like living is about connection. Like if we're the sole person on this earth, where is that satisfaction going to come through in self-achievement? Because you've got no one to share it with, you've got no one to connect with it over. So the first thing we want is to build genuine connection with people. We feel we can share these things, highs, lows, otherwise, you know, the things that make us unique. And to have that valued, coming back to what you were speaking about before, to have someone like attentive and listen to you as you tell that story or share that story. So that is just so fundamental to everything else, because a connection allows for you to speak openly. It allows for you to broach those things that wouldn't be comfortable with perhaps with perfect strangers, or if it's just you beating yourself up over the mistake that you made.
I think also one of the things that can happen with males is, you know, you can gather around in a barbecue or something as a group, and you can kind of talk to one another. Bit of bonding. Yeah, exactly. But you never get beyond talking about the footy or you know, the kind of stuff that's sort of at that level of conversation. You don't really get to, rarely, unless you do have the experience of perhaps one-on-one or in a smaller group, of being able to have those conversations about the other things that we're talking about. Then maybe the group can have those conversations as a group as well. But generally my experience is we don't. We gather around the barbie, have a few drinks, talk about the footy, you know, it's a nice day, you know, we're going to play golf tomorrow, that sort of thing. That's all fine, you know, nothing wrong with that, but where do we get the opportunity to go deeper with our friends? Because we'd call those people our friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
But where's the deepened sense of friendship in that? Where are we? And of course, if there's a crisis, people will respond and all of that. But in the day-to-day activity, that's where we need friends, is just day-to-day life.
Yeah. It becomes very surface level, so we sort of get this little, I don't know, it's like a tiny let off the steam that says, oh yeah, we have friends and we are connected and those sorts of things. But if we're not willing to talk about that inner struggle with, you know, self-identity, or with, you know, the a waning connection with a partner, or whatever it is, the things that really matter, then who can we speak to it about?
Well, and even just to celebrate the little, I mean, I think the other thing is often, until we've had a few drinks maybe, we're reluctant also to put ourselves forward in terms of, we actually had this success, whether it be in work or in some other setting. We kind of put that on hold, you know, and unless we have the opportunity again one-on-one to talk to people and say, well, actually I did this piece of writing and I was really proud of that. And you know, the guy that I meet with is a poet and he writes poetry, so he presents his poetry to me. Now he won't necessarily present that to other friends in the broader context of things, but one-on-one he feels like, John's interested in this, so we'll look at this together.
So, and how does that feel for you? Like to me, that's a privilege,
right? Oh, it is. it gives you great insight into another person's life, which is a tremendous thing about being human, is that you can actually be reflective with someone else about their lives, and that is powerful to share that experience of someone else's life, the highs, the lows, the successes, the failures, the everyday mundane things as well as the great things. I mean, I think that's the ultimate, really.
Yeah. It's just exploring. Like it's going, well, you know, Ben's a great mate. Like, I want to understand him. I want to know more about him, because like there's value that we bring. Not, you know, what we do as a business is one thing. Like, that's a united vision, and we care about his purpose. But even just to hang out, like just to be with someone, because you know that you can be yourself. You know, you can actually speak openly about things. You can support each other through challenging times, and you can, like, I dare not say emotional, in case there's men listening out there going, oh no, that's not for me. But you can just let that flow. You don't have to be something that you're not in that moment. And like, you know, full transparency, we cried in front of each other and to each other about different things that we've shared, and I'm okay with that. Like, not a lot of people are. Many people that I've gone through life with have not had cried since they were a child. They've not allowed themselves to do that. And it's not to say you have to go there, you want to go there. It's just about letting energy flow through you. So if there is something hard, challenging, feels overwhelming, you're tired, you're exhausted, well, that might be what actually brings you some remedy to that. It might be the thing that allows you to let go of it, so you can move towards the thing that you really want. You know, anger is a big one for men. Frustration can be a big one for men, because we're trying to contain something, or we're not able to contain it, and we're not able to process it, so it spews itself out into our existence. And so when we have these connections, that stuff is processed. We don't need to go and hit a boxing bag, because it's flowed in and out. It hasn't got stuck somewhere within us.
And I think that because I think our relationship has really fostered that in terms of the connection that we've had and the openness, and like I speak to you more than probably any other guy about, you know, how I'm feeling and all that sort of stuff. And I think that that's allowed me to understand that, like, because a lot of people think that like emotions and all that sort of stuff and sharing emotions can be a bit of like a sign of weakness, whereas like it's really a strength, really, because if you have the courage to go, hey, this is how I'm feeling, blah blah blah, that's, to me, that's a sign of courage and strength. But also helps realize that that everyone has different things, and there's a lot of similarities. Like, if you're feeling something, the chances are I've felt that or am feeling something similar.
You can relate to it, right?
Yeah,
we have individual experiences, but there's a relatability to it.
We all think that we're like, oh yeah, I'm the only one going through this, or I'm you know, if I share this with this, people are going to laugh at me or whatever. But then you say something, and then someone else goes, yeah, I'm exactly the same. Like, I've felt the same way. You know, I've had these same struggles, whether it's, you know, in relationships or in families or work or whatever it is. Like it's actually probably amazing how much you can have those things that are similar between the two or more people that you probably don't even know, because you never uncover it, because you never speak about it type thing. So
it's that opportunity to process and to find your own solution. Like, one thing I'm learning is that, like, you don't always have to offer a solution in that situation either to someone that is suffering. And again, you spoke about very early on with Heart Street. It's sometimes just about listening, because every person's, the thing we probably haven't spoken much about is there's a relationship with yourself. You know, there's a connection that you need with you, and that becomes through being still and being okay with yourself, and being able to you know, sit and explore and to see how you interact in different environments, and to me that is part of that growth. Like, and that is the growth that allows you to sort of feel like there's purpose and meaning in life, and to be open to new connections and relationships that bring more value. They 10 times those results, which is why we seek out partners and families and those types of things.
And I think if we have those close connections and those conversations that we're talking about, it gives you so much more a greater frame of reference for your life, you know, because you do understand that other people experience the same emotions, but also it allows you to project that into the world and say, well, actually, I'm part of a world which is experiencing these emotions as well. And the way that would be expressed for me, there's a number of ways, but Anne and I go to the theatre a lot, and I'm continually moved by the experience of the theatre. Now, it's not just the theatrical experience. I think it's because it taps out into the emotional context that I've been able to be involved in my own life that connects with a piece of theatre that really brings out So I find myself quite emotional experiencing a piece of theatre which maybe 30 or 40 years ago I wouldn't have had the same kind of connection with, but I think the experience of being human again actually allows you to tap into that broader humanity.
You mentioned something about context there, and it's a very important topic to sort of cover, because we don't have context if we stay in this narrow sort of lane through life. If we work the one job or hang around with only the same people, like there is no discovery, there's no exploration. And when we do that, it's kind of like having the blinkers on, as a young horse. They're trying to race it, so they want it to go in the same direction as fast as it can. But it doesn't give that horse any context of what else is out there in terms of life. It's like, this is my task, I have to do this task. To me, context is critically important in our discovery of life, because you need to be able to experience things or listen or see things that are beyond what you would normally look at in both directions. Even if it makes you, in fact, especially if it makes you uncomfortable, right? Because it's only when you do that then you can kind of self-regulate and find where you are comfortable along that spectrum. And it doesn't need to be the same as everyone else, but it needs to be well informed. And the only way it can be well informed is through a variety of sources of information, not by limiting it to one or two sources.
A great example of that that's like pretty relatable is like travel. Like if you live your whole life, like you said, like your mum lived in South Australia, so she only knew things from South Australia. You travel, automatically you start seeing all these new things and experiencing all these new things, and then it's like, whoa, there's this whole different world out there, and people think this and other people think this, and it's just like it opens your eyes to other things in the world, and you go, okay, my theory of what life was is now completely changed because I've experienced all these new. I have an understanding of all these other people, why they do this, like the different cultures and all that sort of thing. So it's like that's why travel is like a great thing in terms of life experience and whatnot. And it's the same with anything else in life. It's like do things that challenge you and make it, as you said, uncomfortable. Like whether it's going down and jumping in the ocean in the middle of winter, or listening to something that is completely different to what you normally listen to. Like we get stuck doing the same thing over and over again. Like I listen to these same people. I watch these same TV shows. Even if it's something like as simple as like I usually read this kind of book or usually watch this kind of movie. Like try something like slightly different. Like, and
so what if it doesn't work out? So what if you don't want to do it again? At least you've got an experience now, which allows you to connect and relate to someone else better that does that or chose not to do that as well. And this is like there's different areas. There's the exploring because it's exciting and discovery, and then there's also the exploring about that purpose of life, or about someone that currently feels like in opposition to you because of a strongly held belief, whether that be religious or political or whatever. But instead of combating that, what if we tried to understand it? Like we don't have to accept it, we don't have to agree with it, but what if we just listened? Like what if we just went, you know what, tell me a bit more. Like I'll be honest, I'm a little uncomfortable, but I want to understand this a little bit more before I sort of sit where I want to sit on that spectrum. Just to me, that would just address so much disharmony and conflict within society, because fundamentally we are so connected as human beings. Like the things that we fundamentally need, like the clean water, air, food, shelter, connection, love, like those things, they unite us. They're universal, right? And so without that we suffer. With that we generally flourish. So why would we see someone as so different because they have a belief differing to ours? And it might be what you consider an extreme belief, but you don't understand the context of the life. You don't know what they've experienced. You only know what you have. So rather than looking through your filter, why not try and explore that a little bit at least? And as long as we're not causing direct harm to others, and direct harm is, steal, hurt, like directly, I'm not talking about saying something that someone, is offended by on a shallow level, because we all need to be personally responsible, both as how we receive and how we transmit communication as well, like to protect our internal and external environment. I'm talking about let's be a little less guarded, and let's go, we have so much in common, let's try and understand the differences, the uniqueness. And we can self-regulate. That's the beauty of being who we are. I can choose whether or not I want to hang around Ben or be mates with him, or grow a brand and an enterprise together. We don't have to do that. We do that by choice. We can only do that when we fully understand someone and seek to understand the things that are different from us.
Yeah, and I think one of the great insights, or great insights generally, is the exposure that I've had to people who are seeking asylum in Australia, and understanding that their experiences of life in their home country, because of political circumstances where they've either been persecuted or being under the threat of persecution. But that aside, it's exactly what you said. What they want to do is live a good life, be connected to their family and the broader community, work and be engaged in the community in whatever way. And that's the same for all of us. And that doesn't change whether you're from Sri Lanka, India, China, United States. We're all fundamentally wired the same way around that. However, in Adelaide, Australia, I think it's possible to go through life ignoring those opportunities. I can live a really good life in my nice house, in my nice suburb, and not ever encounter a refugee or a homeless person or an Indigenous person if I don't want to. I can live that life, and I can be, it would seem, happy in some sense of the word. However, would I be fulfilled as a human being? Would I be exploring the outer reaches of what it is for me to be human? I don't think so. And so I'd be very limited by that experience. And yet, at the same time, it's possible for us to have other experiences. So it's that kind of schizophrenic kind of dichotomy that we often create in society, where our choice can be a very narrow choice and a very limiting choice about our lives, which can be attractive because we think, oh, well, that will save us from conflict or thinking about things that are going to emotionally touch us. We're avoiding something that feels foreign or different or uncomfortable. And I really want to highlight what you said there about that concept of happiness as it compares to meaning, purpose, fulfillment. Because to me, there's different ways of looking. Happy is such a loaded word. Like, happiness is a human emotion. If that's all you're thinking about it, well, there's several other human emotions. So if you're trying to be one thing all the time, and you're human, you're not going to be one thing all the time, so you're always going to be dissatisfied that you're not happy. If you think about happiness as being more connected with being meaningful or fulfilled, then you don't have to be happy all the time to as the emotion, to feel happy or satisfied. And so, I read a book years ago called The Happiness Trap, and that was profound for me because it talked about a lot of that stuff and about the difference between goals and values, and living your life in a way that has meaning. And so for me, it's always about, I want my life to have meaning. I want it to meaning to me, but meaning to those around me as well, so that it has an influence in other people exploring what's important for them. But such a really important thing to highlight, because we all want to be happy, but what is happy to you? What is your concept of it? And is there something greater that you could value above that? Because
meaning, you'll be happy, you'll be sad, you'll be fearful, you'll be joyous. You'll have all of those range of emotions, which provide you with the rich experiences that make you feel like you have meaning and makes you feel satisfied with life.
And I think that gets back to what you were talking about earlier about reflection. I think that's the call to being a whole person, if you like, the ability to develop your own reflective practices that enable you to see situations and to evaluate them and to let them wash over you at times, and not to have solutions to situations even for yourself, but just to let yourself experience those. And I think that's where reflection comes in, and that's where, as we've been talking, we don't often give ourselves the space to do that, either as individuals or as smaller groups of people, because I think that reflective capacity, when engaged with effectively, will take us beyond the sense of being happy now or in this moment, whatever. It's about putting your life into context, as you say.
Yeah, I agree. Ben, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just think that, like, as we were saying, talking about happiness and all this sort of stuff, and like it's pretty common that we always put happiness on things that are in the future as well, like in terms of material values or
I'll be happy when.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's the reflection is key to being happy in the present and being happy with what you got and going, oh, actually, like, I'm doing what I want to do. I have like a great family. I have a great bunch of friends. I'm happy with everything that I got. Like, I don't need a fancy car, or I don't need that promotion, or I don't need. Yes, those things would be nice, but if I'm waiting to be happy when once I go on that holiday, I'll be so much more, recharged and relieved and happy. Then it's like, well, that holiday's not for 6 months. Like, what you're just going to grind your way to there. What can you do now? Like, what are the small things along the way that you can do? Like, what are the daily habits or weekly habits that you can put in place to help do that? And what we do here is Dan and I do a weekly celebration thing where we, at the end of each week, we say, one thing we're grateful for, one thing that we completed, like achieved, and then one thing that we discovered. And it's a very simple thing, and it takes 2 minutes to do. Sometimes more, depending on what the week's like.
The reflection.
But it's just like, it's a way of stopping and reflecting and going, all right, well, actually, like, these things are going really well. Or like last week, we both spoke about how we have this sense of there's a lot of people out there who are actually wanting to help us and help us pursue what we're trying to do, and they're offering up their time or their services or their knowledge around different particular areas, which it can't be a coincidence that all these people are doing this, like, and offering it for us. It's something that we're doing that is creating that. So,
and we're fortunate that people are responding to us, aren't we?
Yeah,
but we're not like. We talked about this yesterday at breakfast, right? We had a great conversation with a friend you introduced me to, and it's it's not about luck. It's about creating. It's about manifesting what you want, and when we do that, when we're in alignment with that, we press this energy out around us. It's like this field that people are drawn into because it aligns with their field. And it sounds very metaphysical, but you can feel that. Like, it's that feeling like when you go into a room after there's been an argument. There might be no one there, but you can just feel this energy. Yeah. And I think it's the same when people are in alignment with their values and they're moving towards something that is meaningful. Other people will support that because they'll relate to that and go, this is something that's important. Yeah. And it's been so rewarding noticing that. To be present in that moment, to notice when that stuff's happening, because I just start smiling when I feel it. I'm like, oh my God, here it is again. Like someone is or something is supporting us in this journey, but we part of that is us supporting ourselves in this journey because we've finally got the courage to go, this is where we need to be right now and what we need to do.
Yeah.
Do you agree? Yeah, I obviously agree with that.
Yeah, 100%. And think people are very good at shifting blame and all that sort of stuff for why things aren't happening, but you also got to recognise when things are happening because of things that you've done. Like there's, yes, okay, sometimes there are, some people say there's no coincidence in life, like, but I believe sometimes there are just odd coincidences, but it's often reasons why, you know, you're in a certain situation, whether it's a good situation or a not so good situation. Like often it's because of things you've done to get to that point, and then it's like, or what your reaction to that is your decision. Like I read a book and I gave it to you, called "The Courage to Be Disliked," and it speaks about like you have the ability to, you know, your past doesn't define your future. What's happened to you in the past makes you who you are, but it doesn't give you, if something happens to you on that day, that isn't the reason why you did that. You have the choice to do that, and it's affected by what you've done in the past. But if someone comes up and punches you in the face, like, your reaction to that is completely up to you. You can turn around and punch them back, or you can forgive them, or you can, you know, run away or whatever it is. But that split second decision is your choice and what you want to do with it. And so often people are like, oh, you know, it's because of this and this has happened to me in the past, and that's just putting the blame on that, and it's not actually going, well, look at all these people out here who have had horrible things happen to them in the past, but then, you know, they're the most nice people that, because they make the decision every day to be a nice human being, and they're not going to let what has happened to them in the past affect them. So
there's a safety in doing that, like in saying that someone else is the problem, and it's not about beating yourself up. Like, I think some people avoid looking inwards, and some people put everything on themselves. But I think there's this sort of a healthy middle ground there when we just take personal responsibility for the things that we could be more thoughtful about in the way that we sort of respond or the way that we act. And when we do that, we actually allow space for other people to do the same. Now, they won't always do that, but it gives it a better chance of happening, because if we said it was all someone else's fault, well, then there's a visceral reaction to that. It feels like it's a defense, which sometimes turns into an attack, which just creates this game of very violent tennis, John. It's very different from what you've experienced. But it doesn't serve us. It doesn't serve either of those people. Whereas, you know, when you're willing to acknowledge, you know what, I probably could have communicated that better. You know, I was a little bit emotionally heightened in that moment, and, you know, I'm sorry for that. And, you know, maybe the other person will say sorry and they'll acknowledge their stuff. Maybe they won't, but it'll at least disarm that situation, and hopefully in time that other person will reach that point of growth where they feel comfortable doing that as well, which only grows the relationship.
I think one of the things I've found very useful in a work context, but it grew into beyond that, was having mentors throughout my life, people that I could go to and purposefully check out what I'm doing and getting some feedback from them directly about that. I think that sense of having an accountability that goes beyond your kind of workplace, because your workplace can be limiting in its own way, but being able to explore, check out with someone beyond yourself and beyond your organisation, I think can be really useful. And I always encouraged people that I had some responsibility for to seek that out for themselves too. A lot of organisations can feel that a bit challenging, because they think, oh, they're going to talk about things about the company or about the organisation that we're not too sure about.
We don't want to
address. But the well-developed ones will encourage it, and I think it's really important for workers, people, to know that they can seek. And, you know, I had Max, who was my mentor for 10 plus years, and now he's one of my golfing partners. You know, it sustained me through a whole lot of situations in the workplace, and always our conversations had a breadth to them but they also had a purpose to them too. And I think for anyone that's engaged in the workplace or in any situation, to have someone who maybe even isn't your friend, but who's you trust and whom you can go to on a regular basis, that can be a very useful way of doing the sort of things that you're talking about there, about shifting things like self-blame or blaming others to a broader kind of context of, well, what is this situation? Can you help me? Here's the scenario.
Yep.
Can we work on this together?
Yeah, it's that willingness to open yourself up to growth. It's willingness to go, actually, maybe I did make a mistake there, or I misread a situation, or I didn't have all the tools yet. Help me with that, because usually a mentor is someone that's got a richer experience in the area of life they're mentoring you on than what you have at that point. And so you're seeking out that experience to build your own. It's definitely something we speak passionately about with our programs, about not just mentors but accountability buddies, like people that are, again, have that willingness to say something important, knowing that there's a risk that it could be hurtful or might make that other person feel something less than what they currently are. But it's like knowing that, if Ben says that he values authenticity and I see him trying to pretend to be something that he's not, then I care about him enough to say that. I'm not telling him off. By no means I'm telling him off. I'm trying to deliver a compassionate message that says, hey man, like, you talk about this and I see when you live that, you really connected with it. That wasn't on the mark for you. Like, is there something going on? Like, is there something I can support you with? So I think, having that balance between mentors, and sometimes they can play, varying roles. Someone can mentor and, accountability buddy, but knowing who those people are in your life, and, that willingness to surround yourself with people like that is what's going to move you closer towards, the type of experiences you want to live.
I've actually gone, this is a fairly recent thing that I've done just as a practical thing, is writing down, in fact in that book there, headings of areas where I want to sort of operate in. So I've said sort of family, spiritual development, close relationships would be examples, and named the people, medical. I've named people that I value and trust, whom I want to be on my team.
Sure. Yeah.
This is my team.
Yep.
Doesn't mean they're the only people in my lives, but in these particular areas, these are the people I trust and I will go to for growth and development or crisis, if that should occur. I find that quite reassuring to just name those people. Like, I think we all have them in our minds, but to actually write them down and say, this is my team around medical stuff. This is my team around spiritual development stuff.
Yeah, and then knowing that those people deserve to be reinvested in themselves, because they're already investing in you.
Well, and I've only just started the process of actually telling them that they're on my team.
Jeez, so this sounds like primary school.
I'm waiting for the reaction. I told one of them the other day, they said, oh wow, that's great. Yeah. But others might not be so sure, I don't know, we'll see.
Jeez. As long as it's not a gaggle of people and you sort of, I'll take Ben. John's just sitting there like, come on man, hit me. But yeah, look, and probably no better place to probably wind up from here, like just on something a little bit lighthearted. But like I've really valued the conversation. I've definitely admired you and definitely those values that Ben seems to have espoused in a similar way to you, of that sort of reflection, that ability to just sort of shed off the things that most people carry around like sacks of luggage for them, in a way that allows you to be present with people and to share and be open. And hopefully the audience will value that as well. I'm sure they will. And so I think, like, if we were to summarise some of the things we spoke about, we talked about that self-awareness, we talked about a lot about reflection and about the value of that, about being a great listener and how that can open up connections with people and help someone, particularly in a stressful situation, feel more valued and heard and able to sort of combat their challenges. We definitely talked a lot about connection, about how we achieve that by being more open and vulnerable with people, seeking out different experiences and sources of information, even when it feels uncomfortable, to help provide more context and perspective to a situation. We covered happiness versus meaning, and how if we're only looking at happiness as emotion, it can be very self-limiting in the way that we sort of seek that out, whereas when we talk about meaning, is a greater purpose that lies in that for us. So there's a lot of really valuable topics, I think, there. We referenced a couple of books. The Courage to be Disliked was one of them. We'll pop that in the show notes. The other one was The Happiness Trap. And the other thing to keep in mind is pop along to our website if you're listening to this on a different channel. Our podcast does sit there as well. We've got the blog there. We've got ebooks, or ebook at the moment. There'll be another one released shortly. And there's an adaptability assessment that you can do as well to sort of have a look at kind of where you are at in those key areas of your life as well. And then if you want to engage with us, there's, as you mentioned, Ben, if you're in Adelaide, there's a Friday afternoon catch-ups at midday in the western suburbs, as well as the wellbeing and performance programs that we're running in organisations. So we're absolutely always excited to welcome in new people with that, because it's an exciting journey for us to learn about something new and to help a community of people move towards more connection and better performance within their environment. So John, thank you so much for joining us. I think that was really valuable. I hope you enjoyed it too. And Ben, thanks for bringing John along and giving a little bit of context as well to the story of your dad.
Thanks a lot. Keep up the great work.